Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Soulful Abundance Festival. My name is Elise Preston, and I'm your host. And today I am here with the amazing Cassandra Lee. Hi, Cassandra.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. So great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Yes. And Cassandra is a brand and visibility strategist and the founder of Quirky Pineapple Studio, a brand strategy and copywriting studio for mission driven, service based businesses who want to increase their profits and impact with marketing systems, brand messaging, and content. Their team that they work with is BIPOC, LGBTQIA, and feminist businesses and brands to help them share their mission with strategic storytelling and engaging content so that they can create real relationships online and in person to grow their communities and ultimately create profits. So welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to be able to dive into this conversation with you today and want to be able to start off by just grounding a bit into your story and sharing a bit about your own journey of healing and how that's allowed you to find yourself in the space that you're working in today.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh gosh, when you sent over the questions, I was like, oh, healing. How do I approach this? So I feel like my journey of healing continues. It never has really stopped, or I don't really have like an end goal. I feel like there's always things to heal from, especially as I keep learning about myself. So, as a Vietnamese American, first generation daughter of immigrants, I have moved abroad to Spain. And that whole journey, I think, was a little bit traumatizing and also healing at the same time. I knew, and I think I shared this with you before, but I knew I was Asian, duh, because if you're watching this and you can see my face, you can see that I'm Asian. But I don't think I realized how important that was to my own identity until moving abroad. And I always say, I didn't know how Asian I was until I moved here. And then that's when I realized that I'm quite Asian. But I think it's not just about culture or, how I look. It was definitely really understanding where my family came from, the traditions that I was taught at home, the culture and the food that we had, the beliefs I had, and also just how I interact with the world. I feel like I didn't really truly understand because it's just like, oh yeah, when I'm home in the United States, I just act like everybody else. And then when I came here, a lot of people started asking me like, oh, is this like a tradition that you do in the United States? Or is this what you did with your family? Like, what is the norm? Because I was supposed to be teaching other people as a language assistant. And I was like, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it comes from my Vietnamese side of the family or just being born and raised in the United States. And I think that really got me started on my healing journey and understanding and diving more into my personal identity and just how I want to show up in the world, how I want to interact with clients and all of that stuff. That was kind of a long answer. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, yes. No, but I think that's beautiful and speaks to the fact that as we travel along our own personal journey, there are different ways that we experience ourselves depending on the environments that we're in, who we're surrounded by, what we're experiencing in those moments. And it calls on us to be able to, call on different tools to navigate our identity and belonging and what that means
Yeah,
to us.
for sure.
And I feel like you did have a chance to speak to this a bit in your first answer, but wanted to be able to hear and learn a little bit more about how your multicultural experiences have influenced your journey with belonging and your ability to show up more fully in the world.
Okay, so the multicultural experiences I didn't realize I also had until being abroad. And I've now been living abroad for almost 6 years collectively. and I've traveled extensively. And I think wherever I go, I always pick up something and I always learn something. And then, of course, being abroad and being away from my family and being away from people who look like me has been so interesting. I think it was a lot of doing life coaching work with myself, and then also investing in life coaches, and then kind of getting curious about my own family's history and background. Because of course, like, being raised as a first-gen immigrant, I know things like food, and I know the holidays that we celebrate, and I know a little bit of the language, but I don't really understand what what brought my parents over or their journey over. And I don't think they're ready to tell me those things, but just the curiosity of that, I think, started to get me understanding more about how I want to show up, what's really important to me. And then also doing business online, I started meeting people from all over the world who were kind of telling me, hey, I feel like I'm in between. And I get it, because being Asian American, it's like that hyphen. But then being Asian American, living abroad in Spain for so long, and now being able to speak English and Spanish and kind of like maneuver between those lines was like, well, what do I do? Because my parents are immigrants, and then I became an immigrant. So how does that fit into my own story? And just diving into like all of those layers, I think has really helped me understand, okay, these are things that I like, these are things that I don't like, and I want to be able to show up more me and understand what parts of culture actually pertain to my beliefs, my core values, how I want to act in integrity within like my personal life or even in business.
Yes. Oh, and I love that, this all started and grew out from that place of curiosity and just asking deep questions. And I don't actually remember who said this, but this, like, what was coming to my mind was that quote that, like, the quality of our life is determined by the quality of the questions that we ask ourselves. And that offered you that avenue, that lane to explore what are your core likes, dislikes, wants, needs, desires that are aligned with your values and your integrity, even outside of some of those cultural boxes.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And so as you were stepping into that space of launching your business, of launching Quirky Pineapple Studio, I'm wondering how you found your way there, and how you were able to support yourself with some of those challenges that often come up as we step into entrepreneurship around just finding our way, experiencing things like imposter syndrome or fears around vulnerability and leadership. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. So big tip here and recommendation for anybody watching or listening. Do not start a business the same time you decide to move abroad to a foreign country that speaks a foreign language. Do not recommend that to anyone. And I feel like every time I tell that story, everybody's like, oh my gosh, you are so badass. Like, oh, this is so good. Like, look at you, you did it. And I'm like, oh, but don't do it, like really don't start don't start your business and then, move abroad at the same time. So for me, I think my journey into entrepreneurship was like always happening in the background. My mom actually used to buy me like American Girl books on how to make money, as like a hobby. Or she bought me a book that was like how to make money from your hobbies. And it was like, you can do a garage sale, you can make stuff, you can make pastries and do bake sales and stuff. And that was when I was maybe like 8. And the idea of entrepreneurship has always been in my mind. And I think my first real take into entrepreneurship was when I was in 6th grade and I sold bookmarks out of index cards. Yeah. And I would sell them right before we had book sales at my school. And then I realized, okay, this is something I think I can do. I think I could make a business doing something that I like, creating something. And then, of course, online entrepreneurship became a huge thing. And that's when I started realizing, okay, these are my marketable skills. creating content, branding, social media. And that's when I thought, okay, if these are marketable skills, how do I package them to be sold? And that's when I started hanging out with a whole bunch of like online entrepreneurship circles. And then I was working full time at that moment. And it wasn't until I guess something really bad happened at work, and I was just like, this sucks. I'm never gonna work for the man again. I decided to quit my job and then moved back to Spain to be with my partner. And I think the hardest thing for me at the beginning was one, figuring out my schedule. Like, you know, when somebody is telling you what to do every day, it's really easy to just do it. And then, you know, if you finish, then you have extra time to just do whatever you want, but you're getting paid for it. And when you're working for yourself, no one really tells you like what's priority that day. You kind of have to decide. And I just remember the first 3 to 6 months, I would wake up and kind of just be like finger in the air. Which way is the wind blowing today? I think I'm going to go with this project. And that's how it was for 3 to 6 months until I finally realized, okay, I need to organize my energy better. And it's not just my time. Like I need to figure out when I'm most creative. I knew after lunch eating, I was really tired. So that's when I realized, okay, that's when I'm going to answer emails, because emails suck the life out of me in the morning. And those were just like little tips that I started figuring out over the course of like 6 months and on. Like I'm still learning about this today. And I've been in business now for like 3+ years. So all of that. And I don't even know what else. Does that answer the question though?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
I think too, I really like the way that you were describing finding those different ways to organize your energy, even outside of just thinking about organizing your time. Because yeah, our energy is our most valuable resource. And in order for us to be able to be well sustained, in order for us to be able to have impact, we have to fully understand like what are the ways that we uniquely operate so that we can support ourselves in doing that.
Exactly.
And oh my gosh, that was such a flashback when you were talking about book fair. I loved Scholastic Book Fair as a kid.
Yes.
Like when
Oh
you
my
would get
gosh.
those booklets and you could flip through and see like all the books, but also mechanical pencils and like
Oh yes.
fun
And the
little
erasers and stickers and stuff.
school supplies. Oh my gosh, so fun. And that spark around entrepreneurship started for you even as young as 8 years old.
Yeah.
So powerful. And I think one other piece that I want to just be able to touch on a little bit more was like making that leap around quitting your job and moving to Spain. I know for a lot of people that feels like the scariest part. Like, what kind of inner resources did you need to cultivate within yourself in order to feel safe enough to take that leap?
Well, it definitely took longer than I expected, because when I had moved back to the United States after being in Spain, it was June 2016. And I was talking to my partner and we were telling each other, okay, in 6 months, by December 2016, I would come back to Spain. And that was the timeline. And I was like, I think December rolled around and I was like, I'm not ready. And it took me a year and a half to actually get the courage to tell my parents I was quitting, and then tell my parents that I was going to move in with my boyfriend and live abroad and become an immigrant like them and start a business. And I think it took a lot of one, researching the crap out of online business, connecting and networking with as many people as possible, because I just needed like proof that it could work.
Yeah.
And then also, I didn't realize it, but I had to invest in business coaching and also life coaching. The business coaching I knew, because I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I need somebody to just tell me like how to even structure a business. Even though, you know, being an entrepreneur at 8, nobody really teaches you at 8 years old, like, you know, this is how you should structure your business.
Right.
So I hired my first business coach. And then right before I quit my job and left, I started working with a life coach. And it wasn't even because I thought I needed a life coach. I actually thought, like, as a woman of color, I thought, oh my gosh, this is not something that like Asian people do. Like, we don't invest in life coaching. Like, this is an extra expense. Like, my parents would look at me, and if they knew what I had paid that then, and when I look at what I paid then, I'm like, oh, that's normal. But they would have been like, is there something wrong with you? Like, why can't you just do it yourself? You know?
Sure. No, that's still a very common narrative.
Yeah. And through life coaching, it really helped me figure out, okay, this is who I want to be. And me staying at home in my parents' house in this job was really stopping me from fully showing up how I wanted to be, how I wanted to live.
Yeah.
And as much as I am grateful and so appreciative of what my parents built, I knew I couldn't like live that way anymore. And it was a little bit of a like clash in values and culture because, you know, I don't know how it is in your culture, but at least in Vietnamese culture, we're really taught to listen to our elders and really be appreciative and grateful. And especially as like a daughter of immigrants, you know, your parents sacrifice everything to give you the American dream. And here I was throwing their American dream away to move to a different country. That was really hard. I think that life coaching helped me more than I realized. And then afterward, I just felt like, you know, I'm happy that I did it. I feel there are still days where I feel bad because I'm away from my family, but I know that if I go back, it just I wouldn't be able to like really show up like how I want to. And it's sad to think about it like that, but I think that's just the reality.
Right. And I think too, I really appreciate you breaking this down and sharing with the audience what this looked like for you, because I think sometimes we build up this narrative in our minds that like we have to quit our jobs tomorrow and this has to happen now or it's not possible. And so being able to share that story of saying that it took like a year and a half for you to actually have that conversation with your parents and that it involved a process of research and exploration, of networking and connecting with entrepreneurs, of investing in business coaching and investing in life coaching as like two parallel tracks to support you with making that leap, is something that can be really inspiring and really expansive for people to just see, you know, what is possible. What are the ways that we can make these huge life shifts for ourselves? And in the whole scheme of life, like a year and a half is a blip. That is like, you know, a short amount of time to be able to
like, oh, you're
reorganize
right.
life.
I
Yeah.
know it in my like when I say it, everybody's like, "Oh, a year and a half, you did it so quickly." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that felt like the longest year and a half of my life." Like when I think about
Sure.
it, I was like, every day I just lived thinking to myself, "What am I going to tell my mom and dad? What am I going to tell my mom and dad? Like, how do I tell my sisters? How do I
Right.
tell them that I want to leave?" Um, and it was every day just questioning it, and then I'm like, "Is it worth it? Should I do it? I don't know."
Mm. But finding like what were the support systems that allowed you to root into your own inner truth and your own inner knowing about what the next right steps were for you. And I think too, like speaking to that tension and that clash that happens between sometimes it's our parents, sometimes it's our siblings, sometimes it's friends or colleagues or whatever it looks like. But that process of, you know, shifting, transforming, expanding into something new and different is often going to cause resistance or pushback from the people around us who may not fully understand what it is that we're seeking or like stretching towards, and allowing that to be okay, that actually you get to decide what
Yeah.
you want your life to look like, and that gets to be like the first priority, is so powerful, such a game changer.
Oh yeah.
And so I'd also love to ask about, for you as someone who is a multi-passionate creator, what kind of guidance would you share with listeners who feel challenged when it comes to balancing many different areas of interest?
Okay. I love this question. So a lot of the times, the people that I've worked with have told me pick one thing, which technically you kind of do at least to start. But I think as you grow as a business owner or even as a human, a person, then you kind of start realizing that it wasn't really picking one. It was just at least starting with something besides kind of like getting analysis paralysis and never starting with anything.
Mm,
And like it changes and molds. So I feel like being multi-passionate, you have more strengths than you realize.
mm,
And just picking one is not like getting rid of all of the other things. It's really, okay, I'm going to start with this. And then you kind of see how all of the other things that you love kind of find their way to fit together, I think. Because when I started, I mean, I wanted to do marketing and I wanted to write and then I wanted to plan events. And I remember my first couple years in business, a couple mentors told me, like, no, Cassandra, only follow the money. And they were like, you're wasting your time doing things that don't bring you money,
mm,
which in theory makes sense, especially when you're living off of savings. I get it, but it came in a way of like really feeling like they were boxing me in. And I was like, I see people online who are maybe bigger and like have been in this space for years and they can sell a book, they can plan a retreat, they have their services, they do speaking, they do consulting, they do everything. And I was like, why can't I do that? And I don't need to like wait to be in this sphere or the space for like 10 years. I can start slowly doing it now. And that's kind of when I sat down and was like, okay, what are all of the things that I like?
mm.
And then kind of like, what are the things that I actually really, really, really liked doing and where are my strengths? And that's where I found that by running my own business, I can pull all of my passions together and just find different ways to do what I really want to do. So, like planning events. Right now, we can't really plan in person events, but I can plan online virtual events or I can pull that together and help other people do it. And it all kind of just, I think when I took that first step and picked something, that's kind of when everything else kind of started falling into place. And it
Mm.
sounds super cliche, but it's true. I feel like if I didn't just start with one, I probably would have been just sitting here like thinking, oh my gosh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Instead of, okay, now I can see and I can learn to trust the process, which is hard. It's still like, it hurts sometimes to trust the process because I'm like, I need to know.
Sure. And I feel like that is such a natural and normal and human experience to be like, I want to know how it's all going to unfold. But being able to, yes, pick one thing and know that clarity comes through action. Clarity comes
Yeah.
through that space of just allowing yourself to be in the process and create. So I love that guidance. I think that'll be supportive for folks.
Good.
And curious around what role does community play in your life and in your work?
Ooh, okay. So this is I think a twofold question. So in, I guess in my life, as somebody who is now an immigrant, community is huge for me just because, when you move abroad, and I speak the language now, but when I first moved abroad, I really didn't. Um, Community is huge because you kind of, as much as you want to integrate yourself into a different community or a different culture, there's always going to be something that doesn't necessarily click because it's not yours and you weren't raised in it. And as much as I can adapt and like understand the language and have been here for so long, there I still need like people who get me. And then I guess it's like a mix of now going home, I don't feel like I fit in anymore at home because I've been abroad for so long. So now the only people that I really can connect with, at least in my experience, are people who have been abroad for a really long time
Mm,
or who have traveled extensively, and they're also questioning what their identity actually means to them and who they actually are because they're not here nor there. They're just floaters.
Yeah.
I guess. So that's on my personal side. And then on the business side, I feel like community is huge. Like, you want to surround yourself with people who are doing awesome things or that are looking to always improve. And then I think just by working with people and businesses and brands who are mission driven, it's really nice to see other people use their business to try and create change or impact or to give back to their communities instead of just focusing so much on profits, which I mean, profits are important because we all need money and, you want to make profits, have savings and all of that stuff. But taking it one step further and really using their business as a tool to like dismantle systems of oppression, I think is really amazing. And just surrounding myself with people like that shows me that I can do it and I don't have to be another cog in the wheel, even though I'm not in the 9 to 5 cog wheel. There is the online business entrepreneurship cogwheel as well that I don't think most people talk about on the internet.
Right. Oh, and I love the way that you were describing that, like using business as a tool to dismantle systems of oppression, because I think there is a way that we are seeing entrepreneurship operate in new ways that is really radical and different and liberatory and creating different definitions of what it means to even be a profit-driven business, but that is still centering humanity, that is still centering doing good. And so I also feel really inspired by being able to connect with other entrepreneurs who are operating in that way and creating shift and change within this space. And I know you were talking a bit about, it's still being important to be able to find those ways to create profit, to be able to be sustained in the work that we do. And I'd love to hear a bit about how your understanding of abundance has evolved since launching your own business and stepping into entrepreneurship.
Wow. Okay. So in the beginning, I thought abundance was a thing and I knew about it and I felt like I was more or less abundant. And then I think just from that first year in business to now and my whole personal journey as well, I feel like there is so much everywhere all the time. Am I always thinking that? Probably not every day. There are days where I'm like, scarcity. But when I think about it, there is space for so much. And it's not even just abundance in money, because I used to think, oh my gosh, I'm not able to invest in this. Or if I buy this, I'm going to have to cut back on that, which technically, yes. But then I would also think about time, like abundance in time. And I used to have a really bad scarcity mindset around my time. And I would count to the actual minute, like how long it would take me to walk to the gym and then work out and then walk back. And I was like, that cuts into my time to potentially get new clients and do marketing and do stuff for my business. But it was time that I needed for myself. But I couldn't even look at about it like that, in that way, because I just kept thinking I need my business to succeed. So I think my idea of abundance around time and my energy has changed drastically. The money stuff, yes, as well. But I think the two biggest ones that like have really shifted my perception on like just how I want to live my life, or not even as a business owner, but like as a human, around time and energy has changed so much. Like I'm more adamant about holding my boundaries, especially if it feels like somebody is really encroaching on my time and energy. I also realize that, yes, I have abundant energy, but not everybody deserves that energy. And I need to be mindful of how I can refill myself if I'm going to be giving so much energy out.
Yes. Oh, I think that's so, so important, just as a reminder for all of us that we do have the ability to nourish ourselves, tend to ourselves, recharge, and have an abundance of energy, but we get to be discerning and be in the driver's seat around who we're sharing that energy with, so that we're able to stay in alignment with with how we want to be allocating our time and our attention and our energy. And that's just such a powerful, when you start to feel that shift within yourself around like releasing some of that scarcity and attachment around time and energy and allowing it to be, just more supportive of the ways that you actually want to be showing up in your life. It's so, so huge. And as we start to bring things to a close, I love to ask all of the guests what soulful abundance means to you.
Ooh, hmm. So soulful abundance to me, I think, is related back to the feeling of belonging,
Mm,
specifically for me, because coming from immigrant background, first generation, being a hyphenated Asian American, and then moving abroad, um, I feel a lot of this scarcity around the sense of like, I don't belong here. Like,
mm,
there's no space specifically for me. I can't find people. And when I feel really soulfully abundant, I think it's more grounding in myself than externally looking for spaces. While I do think, finding communities and like groups that are similar to, my situation are great.
mm.
I think it's more me like fully understanding who I am and how that plays out into the external world and the relationships that I can have or that I already do have. And then from there, that's I think when I can actually feel soulfully abundant. I'm not really there yet though. I will be honest. Like it's a work in progress. I think I'm going through it right now.
Yes. And that's such a beautiful thing to name too, is like through every stage of our journey, we're growing and evolving and stretching and expanding in new ways. And so, yes, that it is a journey that and you even said this really beautifully at the top of the interview too, saying it's like we never fully arrive in our process of healing, but that we can find greater ease and flow and wholeness and connectivity to ourselves along the way.
Yeah.
And so I'm so grateful for the opportunity to connect today, to learn more about you and your story and your business, and would love if you could share ways that our audience can stay connected with you.
Yeah, of course. So if you want to connect with the business, then you can follow us on Instagram, which is at the Quirky Pineapple Studio. And if you want to check out our website, it's just thequirkypineapple.com. And then if you want to connect with me, I am also on Instagram ish. It's a love hate relationship. You can connect with me, Cassandra TLE. And then I'm also on LinkedIn mostly, which is just Cassandra Way, my name. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much to everyone who joined us for this conversation today. And I hope that you will join us again tomorrow for our next set of interviews for the Soulful Abundance Festival. Be well,
Woo!
everyone.
Thank you.